A lot of times we hear that Rashi will teach us the literal meaning, the pshat, the simple sense of the text. So literal doesn't have to mean simple sense. Because if many idiomatic expressions are used by the Torah because God wanted to create a language that was very close to the human experience and close to our hearts, our minds, Rashi is able to tell us, don't read it so literally that you miss the meaning. And that's what Rashi does with Bereshit chapter 3, verse 7, for instance. It was just that moment when Adam and Eve, ate from the tree of good and evil. And Vatipachna einei shnehem, their eyes were opened. V'yedu ki eru mimhem, and they knew that they were naked. And that's when they took from the fig leaf and they made fig leaf clothing. First clothing was all natural. Rashi will say, don't think it meant open their eyes as in this is the first time they actually had the power of vision or sight. Lo le'inyan re'iyah mamash, it doesn't mean that they actually saw for the first time. What it means is le'inyan chokhmah, they opened their eyes. For wisdom, they understood that humanity could pursue wisdom, that curiosity will create knowledge, that sometimes it will lead to great discovery, and sometimes it will get the best of us. And then they knew they were naked. Is it only about modesty? Is it only about sensing a certain privacy of body? No, says Rashi. Afsuma yodeh shehu arom. Even a blind person who can't see knows when he's naked. Elamahu, rather, what's the real understanding we need to walk away with when it comes to this verse, that they knew they were naked? Mitzvah achat hayta v'yada. They had one mitzvah to do, to refrain from eating from that tree. V'nit artelu heimena. And they became stripped of it. They became naked of it. Yes, even the first humans had mitzvot, just like the children of Noah will have a certain number of mitzvot, not the 613 of the Jewish people. And they had one at that point, and they couldn't keep that one commandment. Now, is it because human nature says, I'm going to flout the law here, I'm going to make up my own rules of the game, I don't like to be told to do anything, and therefore if I'm told to do it, I'm likely not to do it or trespass? Maybe. And then they became naked, and then they were stripped of the good and the holy and the right and following the path and being able to stay in that pristine garden. When is our nature to reject what we know we ought to do? From whatever source the ought comes, God or a sense of natural law. What would have built the right kind of place for them in the garden and what would have sustained potentially all of us in the garden was to follow the natural law. That was to leave that tree in its spot, in its place, and not eat of that fruit particularly, even if it didn't cause death when you touch it. And sometimes maybe better left alone than introduced into the family. They were naked of the merit of that mitzvah. They were naked of the merit of holding up what God had asked of them. And in terms of then a moral code for the future, if human beings understand that they are naked of the moral asks that God makes, that's the beginning of taking of the, let's say in this case, tools available, the leaves of the garden, and creating new covering, creating new clothes, robing ourselves and protecting ourselves, and potentially the beginning of tshuva, making a return to what we know is the right, we know is the ought, we know is the good, we know is by natural law the common good, and by the covenantal for the Jewish people, the mitzvot we are so privileged to engage in. To continue along with another Rashi, for those who want to hang in for a next one. Why a fig leaf? Ale teina, hu ha'etz, that is the species of the tree, she'achlu mimenu, from which they ate. You thought it was an apple tree in the orchard that they ate from? No, it was a fig tree. They ate from a fig tree. That was the forbidden fruit. But davar shenitkalkalu bo nitkanu. By the very thing through which they came to ruin, they could correct their paths. And so we see there is a lesson that sometimes the very fruit that's available to us becomes that which spoils us. And through engaging it in a righteous way, we can make the repair we need. What other traditions are there about the fruit in the garden? I'm sure you've heard of the apple, and there's another midrash about a pomegranate being the species of tree they ate from. What's the fruit of the garden we are eating from a little bit too much these days, or abusing and not using exactly right? And how could we use that very fruit, that very technology, that very implement or instrument to actually make good and right happen in the world? These are the kind of questions that Rashi's commentary always encourages us to ask ourselves and explore. Shabbat Shalom.